Hello everyone, awesome to see you all over the video. Soon we'll need to celebrate in person this amazing accomplishment, but for right now it's great to see everyone's smiling faces. If you know me, you know that this speech is going to start with a quote. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. What a big opportunity to be here at Chapman University, graduating with a master's in leadership development. It's truly an honor, one, to have attended this amazing university, and two, to be able to share this experience with all of you. Without our interactions and the vulnerable conversations and genuine sharing of ideas that we had over the past few years, this program would not have been what it was. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that it takes a group of people and allows for such critical conversation and openness with each other, but builds a community around it. And we all walk away with more open minds and a discovery about not just others' opinions, but ourselves that we can take away. So I know these lessons that I've learned throughout the MLD program will stick with me for the rest of my life. And as I begin to implement them and use them, I will continue to grow throughout wherever I go. And thank you all for contributing to that incredible experience within our restorative circles. Honestly, something that I thought was kind of a pain at the beginning, but proved to be what I think is a major catalyst for why our group is so bonded. Well, it's a simple act to put people around in a circle to share ideas. What it represents is so much bigger than itself, and to me that has a much deeper meaning that strikes through all of the MLD and even the Chapman Leadership Minor. And that's kind of an image that you can only create looking back in the moment on a late Thursday night when you're putting the chairs back and you just don't want it to be a circle anymore. It's tough, but the lessons of a restorative circle, while small physically, have expanded exponentially for me. And I will always appreciate that learning opportunity. But what really brought it to life was that each person in this program, who I'm truly honored to be graduating with here soon, has an incredible story, and even more than that, an incredible heart for change and making the world a better place. And I think after all the late nights, it was truly inspiring to have the opportunity to share that time with all of you. And even more so than inspiring, it was reassuring that if the leadership class of tomorrow continues to focus on the ideas and the open-mindedness that we valued throughout our course in the MLD, the world will look like a much better place in the future. And that right there proves that what we're doing here in the MLD is so important. And the ideas that we take away and implement for the rest of our lives will help build that foundation and these programs that I think will eventually become commonplace in every university, as we see leadership as a crucial and defining characteristic of our generation and generations to come. A little bit about why I applied for the Master's in Leadership Development is after graduating undergrad, finance major, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And exploring, I thought I wanted to be an investment banker until I practiced sitting behind the computer for 20 hours and realized that I loved engaging with people and collaborating on solving complex problems more than engaging with a computer for most of the day. So this was a perfect segue, and the MLD seemed to pop up right when it was needed. And I applied and loved every second since, having at first devoted a majority of my life to sports throughout college. And before then, I was a little lost when I didn't have a team that I was used to having. And the MLD was such a great community to lean on when support was needed and engage with, to explore ideas and a little bit of what I had missed. So the gaps were just filled perfectly, and the MLD ultimately fostered a different mindset when it came to education for me. At first, I just had a desire to get the best grades I could, because it would set me up to be in the best position after graduation. But going through the process of critically thinking and analyzing for oneself, and then seeing how this theory or this idea fits into your own world, allowed me to see education in a different light. And now I feel that I have a desire to educate myself even beyond formal schooling. It's internal desire to want to have the knowledge and be able to impart that on others and give back to a community, because I've been so fortunate to attend such an amazing program, which gives me to my capstone project, which will ultimately become a webinar with supplemental materials. And in its most basic form, it is a call to action for the current leaders of today and future leaders to engage with one of the most pressing issues that face not only our generation, but it will continue to face future generations to come if we don't choose to act. And the title of my capstone is The Impact of Leadership on Countering Violent Extremism. And at its essence, background is governmental efforts alone are not enough to stop the recruitment and radicalization of violent extremism. And what this means is, after the Arab Spring, we saw a rise in the utilization of social media and recruitment strategies in the online space for terrorist organizations. And this has caused more and more foreign fighters to come into the U.S. and more terrorist acts to be carried out since that recruitment strategy was put into place. And how needs to be stopped is not just a singular effort from a voice on the podium or a policy put into place, but rather education and understanding from leaders and communities, and the willingness to reach out to others who are put in a place of vulnerability where they are at risk to become recruited and radicalized to join a terrorist group. And what I found within my research was that those who felt isolated and felt like society had betrayed them and they were on their own and didn't have a community to look after them, or didn't have anyone trusted to be a part of their lives, and they didn't feel like a part of something bigger than themselves, that inherent need outweighed a lot of judgment and understanding. And there's many factors that coupled with it, but ultimately that was a reoccurring factor. And it takes community leaders to build and recognize when people in their group and in their society feel as though they're an outcast, feel as though they don't belong, and feel as though they have no place to be. And just the simple recognition and education that a small outreach from a leader or a small push towards community building can make a world of a difference and have exponential change is the difference between maybe someone joining a terrorist organization or not. And what really hit home for me during my exploration of this was having the opportunity to interview two former violent extremists, one former neo-Nazi and one former ISIS extremist. And they both explained their story and how they were radicalized. And what was most interesting to me was that while they're so different in their backgrounds and ultimately their paths through extremism, the reason that they joined was so similar, and it was rooted in isolation and the feeling of not belonging. And they both described it in such detail and so similarly. And sitting in the room with these two opposites who had a common reason for joining a terrible and becoming part of a terrible organization was really mind-opening. Like I was blown away by the similarity at the foundation of why they did what they did, and both of them since were de-radicalized and served their debt to society. One of which, the one who fought alongside ISIS, is now sits in the FBI Hall of Fame for his work in stopping terrorist attacks, both foreign and domestic. And to see people turn their life around like that too was something that was so mind-blowing in the moment, and taking those lessons to growth and understanding what it meant to, as a leader, see people for who they could be. And I think no policy or initiative is going to replace that within a community, but rather initiative and ownership of a leadership class that's willing to see people for who they could be and then intercept a vulnerable or possible bad actor before it's too late. And so often we leave a stone unturned or a hand not outstretched because we don't believe that a kind act has the potential to change the world. But we've seen through interviews with extremists, former extremists, and people who are part of this community called AVE, anti-violent extremism. They go around and they speak about what it was like to be de-radicalized and what it was like to be a part of this group. And the story is very similar, where it would have just taken someone to intervene at the ground level to stop so much further hate and terrible things from happening. So the leaning on the leadership class and the potential that one small act of kindness has on not just the other person's life, but thousands of lives potentially in the world. The act of kindness is never too small, and it can have exponential returns. So just having the presence of mind to see where that comes from, I think, is inspiring in itself. Not just, and anyone in this sense can be a leader. You are inherently a leader if you're the one who's building community within your society, and that's a powerful thing to think that anyone can change the world in that way. So the next time you see an opportunity to outstretch a hand or know someone who needs help or just community and family, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out. The importance of the literature that I examined were both in foreign policy, domestic policy, the White House summit that recently happened under the Obama administration, the social media summit under the most recent administration, and then the move from recruitment within their areas to recruitment in the online space. And then the studies went on to test private sector technology and intercepting social media recruitment, and then ultimately counteracting it with their own form of media. So there's been a lot of initiative to counteract this ever-changing space, but at the grassroots of it, it's going to require that people within communities look to find the problems and ultimately take it upon themselves to solve where government and private agencies cannot reach. I think my key learnings from this boil down to just 3 points. And one, anyone can be a leader if they choose to act in a time of need. And this is so true for any situation. I think leadership is such a mentality and a state of mind that it has nothing to do with a position or rank. It's what you're willing to do despite any obstacles for the betterment of the larger group. And I recently had a talk with a World War II veteran who told me this quote that I certainly won't forget. And he said, "Cometh the hour, cometh the man." And he was referencing a time when he was faced with great trials on the battlefield. And it was either step up or there wasn't another choice. And he found it within himself to step up. And I think a lot of leaders find that within themselves, is when it's time to do great, when it's time to outstretch a hand, when it's time to pick someone else up. It doesn't always have to look like a hard-fought battle, but it's instead just the willingness to be a leader when it's time. And then small acts of kindness are the work of heroes. You never know when an act of kindness can change the world. And finally, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more education you have, the more you should feel an obligation to impart that knowledge onto another and keep the cycle going for the betterment of society. Personal reflection is the MLD, of course, with all of you, has a lot of great leaders, and I truly love to just learn from everyone and have this opportunity to fall in love with learning and the process of continuing to learn. So I'm thankful for that exploration. And finally, I'd just like to thank all of you, my classmates, for inspiring and reassuring me that tomorrow's world will look like a much better place because of the leaders of today. Of course, thank you to the MLD professors for creating an environment of shared vulnerability and ideas. And a special thank you to Chris DePedro. You're one of the most genuine and caring people I know. And the MLD wouldn't be the same without you. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you, Mark Meyer. I know you're probably out there somewhere listening. I just assumed you'd be here because you're the spirit of Chapman leadership. And I admire just how wholeheartedly you devote yourself to whatever you choose. And it's something to be inspired by. So thank you. Thank you to Gen Next and the community of leaders within that organization that have helped inspire me to become the person I am and foster my love of learning. Thank you to my family who have supported and believed in me. To my girlfriend Lindsay, who stayed up late and made sure I ate food. Thanks to my dad, the big ideas man. Sean, thank you. You're beast mode. You always set the standard for hard work. To my grandpa, who values education almost as much as he values making other people smile. And finally, to my mom, who has always been my biggest supporter and the reason I am who I am today. Thank you, Mom. And I'll leave you all with a quote. If not you, then who?